Oh hey, didn't see you there. Welcome back to this Jadefire Masters video guide. Today we're going to be covering the talents, azerite, how to play the fight, and tips. So let's just jump into it. Alrighty, so for Jadefire Masters, basically this fight is a fight between a monk and a mage versus you guys. Obviously, you see the mage on the screen. Her name is Mestra, but we're just going to refer to as the monk and the mage because the alliance has a little bit different naming scheme. It's not Mansaroy and Mestra, it's something else that I don't know because I only play Horde. So basically, you're going to be DPSing down the mage primarily while doing some mechanics of the fight that I'm going to be going over. Obviously, the first mechanic we're going to see in this fight is the multi-sided strike, and you'll see that coming up in just a couple seconds. But basically, for the multi-sided strike, you do see Nick actually turn off his UI during this multi-sided strike, and that's in order to be able to see the blinking dots and to be able to dodge a little bit better. So then as for talents for this fight, you're going to be taking Nature's Balance, Wild Charge, Restoration Affinity, Mighty Bash, Incarnation Chosen of Elune, Twin Moon, and Shooting Stars. And the reasoning for this is basically Nature's Balance is the best damage for two targets, especially since these targets are spread out. So Nature's Balance is very good. Wild Charge, being able to even soak the mines. I don't think Nick soaks any of the mines in this video, but if you would like, you can soak some of those fire traps that are on the ground, and being able to Wild Charge back down on the ground is super important. Restoration Affinity is pretty much the default choice. You need to be taking like 18,000 damage taken per second for Guardian Affinity to be able to mitigate more than what Restoration Affinity is passively healing, so Restoration Affinity is pretty strong in that regard. Mighty Bash, being able to stun the tigers is pretty good. You see Nick electing to take Mass Entangling. Mighty Bash isn't super useful, but it's a little bit better than Mass Entangling and Typhoon on this fight. All the talents on that row are decent, though. Incarnation Chosen of Elune, obviously the best choice here. There's no real way that you would ever play Star-Lord, and then Soul of the Forest is just way too undertuned in order to be able to be taken. And then we got Twin Moon. Twin Moon is better on this fight due to the sustained 2 targets plus intermittent dotting of like the mines that you see on the screen right here, these living bombs and those wind tigers. So being able to dot up all that stuff very quickly and getting free Twin Moon value on both bosses is pretty good. And then we have Shooting Stars. Shooting Stars, obviously, since the targets aren't stacked for prolonged periods of time, Shooting Stars is slightly better than Fury of Elune overall, since the targets are pretty spread for the most part. And then as for azerite, you're going to see this as a trend throughout the whole entire instance. You're going to want 3 Streaking Stars, 1 Arcanic Pulsar, and then whatever else. Treacherous Covenant's really good, Dawning Sun is fine, multiple Arcanic Pulsars are also decent, but as trendy as it is in this instance, times 3 Streaking Stars and 1 Arcanic Pulsar is pretty much the go-to for every single fight. So basically, this fight is, you do see Nick pretty much predominantly DPSing down Mestra, and something neat that you actually see on this fight is how to do the maze. So basically, you're going to hit this lock gate here, and then obviously you see Nick kind of get bugged out on the Rings of Peace, but it's not going to be too big of a deal. Additionally, you can navigate this maze pretty easily with just Wild Charge, and you're going to be seeing this in a second, how Nick is going to Wild Charge over the Rings of Peace in order to be able to safely navigate the maze in general. Additionally, on Mythic, there's a little bit different of a mechanic. There's a new Zhao bull chasing you around in the maze, causing you a decent amount of damage, but overall it doesn't do too much, and you're able to kill these barriers once you dunk the balls into them fairly quickly. So that is definitely a really important point. And you do see Nick, the bull is on the screen currently, and you will see Nick probably electing to pop Incarnation once we get out of this phase with the maze as well. Making sure that you're DPSing down the correct priority target is super important. This fight is, I would say, moderately undertuned. It's probably the second easiest fight in the instance. I think Grong is a little bit harder overall. So making sure that you're able to do the multi-started strike correctly, turning off your UI is always a pretty good point. And then you do get a damage increase once you do that multi-sided strike correctly. I think it's about I think it's 20% for 20 or 30 seconds or something like that. So you see Nick get that damage buff, and then he elects to use Encarn there in order to be able to get the maximum use of Encarn. That's a really good use of it, honestly, and he's going to be able to pump a lot of damage into those Spirits of Zwen. Moonkin in general is really good at killing the Spirits of Zwen because their target swapping ability is fairly strong compared to most other classes, so being able to swap off of the bosses and quickly kill those tigers is pretty good. Bash, like I said earlier, is pretty good to be able to stun them, but not super important. You do see, like, basically once Mestra, or the mage in this case, dies, the fight is mostly over. There's not too many other difficult mechanics on this fight, and Mansroy will end up going into his dragon, the monk, I guess. It will end up going into his dragon, but it doesn't do too terribly much. So making sure that you're able to do some things. Did Nick just click Innervate? What is he doing? Oh, he just clicked Innervate out of his spellbook. I would advise against that. I'm sorry that I had to use this clip, but I would 100% not advise clicking Innervate out of your spellbook. Don't do that. Bind it to something. Use a mouse over macro for it. But yeah, no, basically what you're going to be looking to do is you're going to be DPSing down Mestra as quickly as possible. This fight isn't too mechanically challenging, but there is no issue with you staying grouped up. If you're stacked as a group for prolonged periods of this fight, you're going to be able to pump a lot of throughput healing-wise out in this fight, which is obviously in this last phase is a little bit difficult. But if you are stacked up, you have classes like Restoration Shaman, Holy Priest, and other healing classes being able to do a pretty significant amount of healing across the whole entire fight. And you do see people dipping pretty low, but then you see the double links come out, and then basically everybody's topped again. So this fight once the mage dies is pretty much over, and we're just going to see it end pretty much right here. And that will be the Jadefire Masters guide. So I'm probably going to cut this off about at this point and then convert it to here. Basically, Jadefire Masters is a pretty simple fight overall, as long as you have the movements down correctly and making sure that you're able to move correctly. Use your incarn appropriately, making sure that you're able to do the multi-started strike correctly is very important for the success in this fight as a whole. Obviously, the talents and your azerite choices do have some impact, but overall, they're not the most important things on this fight. Just making sure that you're hitting the correct target, making sure that your group is consistently on the mage, making sure that you're able to clear out the fire traps as quickly as possible, and just do the fight as intended is really important. And the fight pretty much dies relatively quickly once you do kill the mage. So stay tuned for that. We will be moving on to Opulence and then Conclave soon, so stay tuned for that. If you like the video, like, subscribe, check out all the stuff in the description below. We got Discord, Patreon, Twitch streams, all that kind of stuff. So if you enjoy the content, make sure to keep up, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.